Rewards were supposed to work, but study after study shows that they actually backfire. They kill curiosity, reduce performance, and even make things worse. So, what are we supposed to do instead? Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Welcome back, everybody. Today we are diving into the next part of my book, which is called What About Rewards? Because I don't know about you, but for me, as a mom of 6 kids, I thought rewards were the bomb. I was thinking, you know what? The rewards are the positive way to get my kids to do what I want them to do. After reading Alfie Kohn's Punished by Rewards, along with lots of other things I discovered along the way when my kids were little, I soon discovered that was not the case. And here's a fascinating study I concluded in my book. I'm going to start on page 22. It's right where I left off from the last episode. And the subtitle of this section is What About Rewards? Because what about rewards, right? They should work. Well, in a 1961 study, a graduate student from the University of Kentucky asked 72 9-year-old boys, first of all, just 72 9-year-old boys. That's a lot of boys. Anyway, he asked them to tell the difference between 2 nearly identical drawings of faces. Some were paid when they got it right, and some were not. Some were simply just told, good job. What they found was that the group of boys that was getting paid made more mistakes. And that left Miller, who was the organizer of this study, to conclude the following, quote, "The clear inferiority of the reward group was an unexpected result, unaccountable by theory or previous empirical evidence." I know, right? What? Rewards are supposed to work. The following year, 1962, a graduate student from New York challenged 128 undergraduates to mount a candle on a wall using a select number of materials. Some of the students were offered between $5 and $20, which was significantly more valuable in 1962 if they succeeded. Others were offered nothing. And you know what they found? Yes, once again, they found that those offered the incentive took nearly 50% longer to complete the task. In 1971, it was similarly observed that 4th graders performed more poorly on a task when they were offered a reward. And by the way, it was a reward they said they liked. They had given them some options and they chose one that they liked. So this is a big deal, something they really wanted. The experimenter said the results were, quote unquote, puzzling. And Alfie Kohn says this: what punishments and rewards do is induce compliance. And this they do very well. So if your object is to get people to obey an order, to show up on time, to do something they're told, then bribing and threatening may be a sensible strategy. But if your objective is to support children and develop good values, then rewards like punishment are absolutely useless. In fact, as we're beginning to see, they're often worse than useless. They're actually counterproductive. That was the end of his quote. That was by Alfie Kohn. Powerful. I love that. Just truth bomb. Boom. He has a very thick book that's very evidence-based called Punished by Rewards. Highly recommended if your brain is noodling on this and thinking, oh, what? I thought rewards were the solution. He gives so much evidence of how they aren't the solution. So while rewards and bribes may create short-term compliance, they come at such a great cost in the long term. So let's just take a deep sigh here for a moment. If this is cracking open some things for you, if this is giving you more evidence to prove something that you believed was true is true, this whole construct we have that we're going to be breaking down here on the podcast and these episodes where I'm going through my book, it's something I break down all the time in Connect Method Parenting, however you are interfacing with me, whether it's in one of my programs, on the podcast, my books. It's important that we start to untangle some of these beliefs that we've just thought were true. We just thought they were true. But study after study has proven that they're not true, that rewards decrease intrinsic motivation. And as it shows in this study, makes the results slower or they're less interested. It's fascinating. The next little section I want to dive into is titled Correction Feels Natural, but it doesn't work. See, I wanted to explore in the book these two sides of the same coin, is how I would like to see them. Correction and rewards, or you could say punishments and rewards. But they're really two different ways that we have been taught to go about getting people to do what we want them to do. I'm going to give them a reward. I'm going to threaten them with a consequence. Usually it's punitive when we use the word consequence. And we're going to look how both of them don't really do what we're thinking they do. Because if they did, and I said this before, but let's just say it again, if they did, we wouldn't be having problems with our kids. We wouldn't ever have to escalate because we all know things they like and don't like that we could give or take away from them. So if that was all it took to get someone to listen, we would be golden. We would just be so golden. So correction feels natural, but it doesn't work. So your child's bad behavior is her way of saying, or his way of saying, hey, I'm struggling over here. I could use some help. When your toddler has a tantrum, she's not thinking clearly. Or if you have a teenager like me, if your teenager is having a tantrum, which looks similar but different to the toddler tantrum, their emotions are high, their intelligence is low. The emotional center of the brain, which is the limbic system, is taking over. They're going into, fight or flight, survival. They're not thinking clearly. They're not thinking logically. If they do have that prefrontal cortex online because they're old enough, it's not working very well in moments like that. So when they're having an emotional tantrum, a release, when they're alarmed or they're frustrated, something isn't working. And the last thing your child needs is to be told to calm down. Think about when you're in a tantrum, when you're having a hard time, when you just got a ticket, when your basement flooded, when you realize you don't have that ingredient that you were supposed to have when someone cuts you off in traffic, whatever your trigger is for you. And you get escalated and your nervous system gets activated. If someone just said, calm down, you're overreacting. Your reaction is unnecessary. Would that work? How would that feel? I think it'd feel pretty crappy. So the last thing our child needs when they're having an emotional outburst is someone telling them to calm down. Or say, hey, if you don't calm down, you're not going to get XYZ. Or if you'll please calm down, I'll give you some ice cream. Now they might go for the bribe. They might even go for the threat. But it's not actually getting to the root of the problem, which is what's causing the outburst. Here's the other thing I say in my book. Let's jump back into it. It's not that she will not calm down. It's that she literally cannot calm down. Cannot. Her nervous system has been triggered. She's in fight or flight mode. She needs time and space and safety to stop tantruming. We need time when our nervous systems get activated to get it back to equilibrium. We know this as adults. Right? We know that if I give myself some time, if I'm able to distance myself from it, whether it's physically or, again, just taking some space and time, if I'm able to think through it and understand from the other person's point of view, oftentimes my nervous system starts to come back to homeostasis. But in the moment, so hard. Now, can we get there? Absolutely. Can a 2-year-old? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I do remember my youngest, who's now 17, when she was 3 or 4, she just intuitively, when she would get really triggered and feel, she could feel she was out of control, and she was little at the time, she would breathe often, like if on her own, she would just like close her eyes and breathe. And I found it so fascinating. I didn't prompt her to do that. It's probably something she saw me do. I'm not saying I was perfect at it at the time, but I did try to be more conscious. As I was, and I was better by the time she was 2 or 3 than I was when my oldest was 2 or 3. But, she would start to breathe, and I could feel her body starting to calm down, but it still took time. And I don't know how she figured that out. And she didn't always do it, just like we don't always do it. Because when our nervous system is triggered and we're in fight or flight mode, to immediately switch off that emotion or to start threatening them, it's ridiculous to think it's possible that they can calm down immediately. And when we start threatening them, we're just fueling the fire. We're just making them more frustrated. Okay. So I know we know this intuitively, but let's really understand that this is the way the kids function too. And they're more immature. Their brains are less developed. So we even need more space. They actually need us to come alongside. We're going to get to that. Co-regulating, helping come alongside their emotions. We're going to get there. But first we need to remember that expecting our kids to calm down when they're really upset, even if we think what they're really upset about is absolutely ridiculous. There was a time where one of my kids just couldn't handle people's feet anywhere near them. So anytime there was a foot near them, he freaked out. And part of my brain would say, this is so ridiculous. And then part of my brain would say, this is his reality. This is where he is. So have compassion and don't tell him to just stop it. It's not that easy. It's not how it works. Okay. Let me tell you a little story. A few summers ago at a family reunion, my 3-year-old nephew was at his wit's end. And by the way, this nephew of mine is so cute. I just love him to death. The cutest. And this was years ago. And we were at this reunion. We have a big family. I'm the oldest of 7. So lots of little people all around, lots of little kids. He was upset with everyone and everything. And of course, some of the adults were very bothered by this. Makes sense. I mean, there's just a lot of noise and chaos with that many little kids. There were probably 20 little kids running around. So someone offered him a popsicle to try to help him feel better. Seems logical, right? We do that all the time. We're like, hey, I'm uncomfortable that you're uncomfortable. Can I make you stop crying so I feel better? It's typically what's happening. Anyway, so someone offered him a popsicle that he loved. He had eaten lots of them all week. And he responded, don't want one. Even though he loved this flavor of popsicle, it was his favorite. His little nervous system was taking him for a ride. I mean, he was out of his mind. And I decided, as I watched him and made sure I was in a good place and I wasn't feeling bothered, I was like, oh, this is so interesting. I'd gotten pretty good at it by then. And again, I am not perfect, but I really find watching and studying the reactions we all have as humans fascinating. And I'm not his mom, I'm his aunt, so it was even easier to be neutral. Anyway, so I thought, okay, I'm going to see what's going to happen here, because I could see all of the things where his nervous system was freaking out, fight or flight. So I decided to see if he would play with me. Play is one of the most underutilized tools we have as parents, and he was the prime age to use it, and just a really easy way of playing. We can still play with teenagers. It's a little different. But with a 3-year-old, oh my gosh, so you just play the way you know you can play, silly and all that. So I got down on his level and looked him in the eyes and smiled to see if he would look back. I needed to see if he was so dysregulated that he couldn't even connect with me, but he could. So I leaned down, I got low, looked him in the eyes. He smiled back. He looked at me in the eyes. I established a working relationship because he was on the same page as me. I could tell because he was looking back, and I got a bit silly. And what I was doing was I was testing the waters to see what he'd do. I knew he was struggling. It was clear as day to see. I could see his brain trying to decide, am I going to play or am I going to keep having this attacking energy? A lot of the other adults left at this time, so there was less eyeballs on him. And there was this moment where his shoulders relaxed and I could see something had switched. And this doesn't always happen, but this time it did. And he started playing. And we spent the next 10 minutes swinging on this really beautiful swing. It was up in the mountains at our family reunion. We have an old homestead that was homesteaded during the Homestead Act. Yes, that's a thing. Do you remember hearing about that in history? So it's 150 acres up in the woods of Arizona. It's very remote. It's rural. There's not a lot of amenities. There's not cell phone service up there. And there's beautiful trees, though. Beautiful pine trees. And this swing made of ropes and a piece of wood had been created under this gorgeous big pine tree. And we sat in it and we just swung back and forth. We sat in it, we just swung, which has other benefits, swinging or rocking. tends to calm our nervous system down. And I knew that. And I thought, oh, double whammy here. We'll play a little bit. We'll sing. We'll swing. We're in nature. Now, it was magical. It was magical. Now, your brain might think that responding with play is spoiling the child. You might think in this moment, well, he was having a meltdown. He was throwing the popsicle. He was yelling at the adult. You might think, oh my gosh, is this appropriate to respond with play? Is it spoiling the child if I respond with play? It's not. Because you can't spoil a child by giving him too much of what he needs. You spoil a child by giving him too much of what he wants. What my little nephew needed was loads of unconditional love and connection, a relationship he could feel safe in, a relationship he could take for granted. And then once he felt safe and relaxed, his thinking brain could come back on. His higher self could be present with us again. He could feel emotionally regulated. He wasn't in need of any consequence. It resolved all on its own. Once his emotions weren't triggered, he was back to his normal self. And I don't remember now in hindsight what had triggered him in the first place. I think he was just tired, exhausted, overstimulated. So that was just something that had happened because of long days that we were all there with so many people at this reunion. So he didn't need a consequence. He just needed connection. And then when he felt safe and he relaxed again, he was great the rest of the day. He didn't need a reward. He didn't need a popsicle. He just needed to feel safe and attached to another human. Permission to experience his frustration and acceptance of where he was in that moment. I'm just going to end it with that. I want to leave you with space today to think about rewards and punishment. And how in our mind and with society so often we have been led to the conclusion that they are the thing that teaches our kids a lesson. But what if a lesson isn't always the thing that needs to be experienced by the person struggling, by our child, and sometimes by us? What if the thing that is needed is space to feel safe, to feel seen, and to experience the emotion all the way through so that it can get metabolized, the frustration can course through our body, be used up, and let go. Just like we have biological waste, unneeded biological foods that we eat need to be expelled. Just like that, we have emotional waste. Unneeded emotions need to be expelled. So he was having an emotional purge. He needed to get rid of it. He needed a little emotional outhouse. And that swing and play and silliness, and we were laughing and singing and talking about funny things, making up stories, making up games on the swing. That's all it needed, that emotion inside of him. It's all that emotion needed to move through him. Not a consequence, not a reward. If something is already not working for our children, they didn't get the cookie, they're just physically exhausted, their sibling just touched them with their feet, whatever it is, right? They have to do homework. They're activated. If we go into, I got to teach them to be focused on their homework. I got to teach them not to be bothered by their sister's foot. I got to teach them to be responsible and pick up their things. And there's already something else going on for them that's activated their nervous system and caused them to have a big emotional reaction. They don't need to be taught anything in that moment. They just need to be invited into our presence and into a relationship that they can take for granted, like they can take the sun for granted, so that their nervous system can relax and heal and grow and mature and process the emotion out so that their rational, higher, loving, kind self, the real them, can come back to play. So think about that today. Just put yourself in situations where you have been activated, or maybe where you've messed up, or you've been upset or frustrated, and think about what you needed in those moments, or if something did help you resolve it, what was that thing that helped you resolve it so that you could move forward? I'm guessing it wasn't a consequence or a reward. I'm guessing it was the love and connection that you were able to give yourself or someone else was able to give you. So I'm going to let you just think about that. We're going to pick back up next time with the next section in the book called The Key to Fixing Bad Behavior is Not About Finding the Right Consequence. We're going to keep building on this idea and unpacking it so that pretty soon your brain has no other option than to think, yes, this is not just feeling better, but it's supported by science. It's supported by research. It's what the latest developmental psychologists are showing us is the truth through what they have found by putting together the findings of so many other brilliant scientists along the way. So we're going to pick up there next time. Today, just think about that. What does your child or what do you need when you have been emotionally activated? Let your intuition guide, let your higher self come to the table, and we'll see you next time where we will continue to unpack what it looks like to show up with a connection-based way of parenting that is very sturdy, that sets firm boundaries, that's compassionate yet firm, so that you can feel proud of who you're being as a parent and you can set your kids up for success. So until next time, go connect with your kids. Maybe go play with them the next time they have an emotional outburst. See if they'll connect with you and you can do something silly, swing, jump on the tramp, play ball, wrestle, hide and seek, whatever comes to mind, try it. All right. We'll talk to you next time. Bye, guys. Thanks so much for listening, you all. If you are ready to learn more about Connect Method Parenting, if you've been listening to the podcast and you think, ooh, I'd love to be able to implement this in my life and with my parenting more, then check out Pivot. It's my 8-week program where we deep dive into learning and implementing Connect Method Parenting so that you can take this information and transform your parenting journey. Head over to connectmethodparenting.com to find out when the next group starts.